Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Arthur Chisholm. I was born on Catholic Hill, but I was raised between Catholic Hill and Hendersonville. At a very early age, I've always felt like, hey, there's gotta be more to life than what I'm experiencing here. Well, I've always been around people that's making things happen. Bob Nichols, Honest John, Flo Myers, Arthur Ellison, my cousin, James Williams, a mover and a shaker, Doc Grant, Anderson Grant, John Levant, E.J. Brown. And these were my mentors. I was impressed by them. And then I began to admire people like Martin Luther King, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, these people that's making big things happen. And that's what this setup is all about. This setup is about explaining why we need to create businesses in our hometown. People like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and our ancestors has done their job. They've made it possible for us to be in business, to have business in our community, to develop our community and move to another level. They have already brought us this far. Now it's our turn to take it to the next level in our community instead of going outside of our community making other people rich. Many of you live out of town. One day you may want to move home. And if we don't develop our hometown, what you come back to will be just what you left. We've got to improve our community. You know, in the Bible, God said, I give you power to get wealth. And God is not going to come down here and make these things happen for us. We are created in the image of God. And what confuses me, if my Father is a creator, that means I have the power to create. And I'm confused as to if I'm a creator and I can create such as my Father, why am I allowing the system to create my reality? And, you know, Paul said to Timothy, I know what's in you. It was in your grandmother, but you have got to stir up the gift. And I say the same thing to you today. I know what's in each and every one of you. We just need to stir up the gift and make things happen. But we have got to come together, one mind, one vision for the people. As I said before, we want to move home one day because these cities are getting out of control, and you want to come home one day. And if we develop our community and make it better, because right now we are being genocided out of our home in the city, and I know many of you know about genocides. You're being chased out of your home, and they're running you out of the city so they can take over. And it won't be long before they raise the tax in the country, and we can't afford the tax, and they're going to run us out of there. Or they're going to develop the country before we get a chance to develop, and they're going to control the country. But now, we've got a chance to develop our hometown and make it possible that we can have what they have and controlling us with. We need to get it together and get it together soon. As I said in the beginning of the tape, I know there's more. It's got to be more to life than what we are experiencing. Then I came to the conclusion, why am I here? Why was I born? God didn't create me just to be born, get a job, take care of my family, have fun, have an exciting life, and die. It just doesn't make sense. It does not make any sense to me at all. You know, everybody that did something came here, did what they had to do. Some didn't. Some came here and wasted the trip and left, didn't do anything to make a difference, to make things better for us. But we shouldn't be one of those that come into this universe, into the world, and leave without doing anything to make it better for the next generation. Not only the next generation, but to improve things for ourselves. God created us to be creators. He created us to make a difference. He said, I give you life that you may have life and have it more abundantly. But we are being controlled. We don't own anything. We don't control nothing. And that's not God's intention for his people. I've put together a project plan, and I would like for every church to get it, because the church is supposed to be the hospital. That's where we should get our healing. And right now, the church is needed. I'm going to send this tape to a few people that I feel that's responsible, that's concerned about their life, their family, and the community. Along with this tape, I'm going to give them a brief copy of the project plan, and what we're going to need is a committee. In each church, I would like for them to, if all possible, to play this tape or make an announcement of the project, which we plan to do, because what we're going to need, we're going to able to be in control of. We are being controlled. The system could come up with a, now we vote, but what good is it to vote someone into office and half of the people, not all of them, but half of the people that we vote in office are being bought out, paid to help control us, believe it or not. So what I'm really saying is we need to get control of our lives. We need to get our community where we want it. And the people that's working with us, that we see, and the Bible also says, know those that labor among you. If we see someone working with us, laboring with us to improve our community, then those are the people that we vote in office to represent us, to keep things moving forward. So I beg of you, please take the time to at least listen to this tape, look over the project, consider what we can do. Please get back in touch with the person that give you this information so we can at least come together and have a meeting if necessary. We would like to come to the church, so if you got any question that you want to ask, we can answer your questions. And at this time, I'm going to play our motivational theme song. Immediately following that, I'm going to allow some out-of-town professional speakers to come to share with you why it's so important that we get our act together as a community and build business. Please refer to your Bibles, Genesis, the 11th chapter, the 1st through the 9th verse, where the people was on one accord building a tower on their way to heaven. God had to confuse their language. God wants us to build on earth, because it's in your prayers you pray, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So I would think the best revenge to take back what the enemy has stolen from us is on earth, is to come together with our gifts, our talents, and our resource. And what I'm hearing the Bible saying is that we need to conduct business on earth as business is being conducted in heaven. And what I see as coming together with our gifts and our talents and working together is a godly good thing.
All aboard! For this stagecoach is about to move out. It is for everyone that has potential and would love to be a superstar. Yeah, buddy, this stagecoach is leaving for Fun Timesville. And the Lord God is your driver to see that we have a safe trip. AC is your conductor. Come on, everybody.
Headed down to Funsville.
Come on.
Come on, take the ride if you will.
Everybody.
You don't have to worry
The
about
Lord God is your driver.
Just come on and get on board.
Ladies and gentlemen, no tickets will be accepted on this trip. You just sit back and ride. Get ready. Everybody put your hands together right about here. We gonna do a soul clap. Come on, everybody. We gonna ride. We gonna ride. We gonna ride. Soul clap. Soul clap. Get ready.
Headed down to Funsville.
Ride.
Come on, take the ride if you will.
Sit back.
You don't have to worry
The Lord
about
God is your driver.
Just come on and get on board.
and everybody in the surrounding area, get ready. Everybody put your hands together right about here. We're going to do a soul clap. Come on, everybody. We're going to ride on everybody. We're going to ride. We're going to ride. We're going to ride. Soul clap. Soul clap. Gonna get you. Get ready. And God, we trust you'll have a super ride, a safe ride, and a wonderful time. This is AC Superstar Funtown Production. Look out. This stagecoach will be coming into your town soon. And this is Arthur Chisholm letting you know that you've just got to be.
Come on, take a ride if you will.
I come to you this morning to talk to you about something that's very close to my heart. And I'm not here to be divisive. I'm not here to offend anyone. Necessarily honest man. I want to find some black people and some white people that understand the problems in America. I want to find somebody that understands in America that contrary to popular myths, black folk are not progressing in America. Black people are going backwards. In comparative proportional terms, black people in America, where you were in 1850 in this country, you have not progressed. You're still in your same dilemma, contrary to anybody tells you. And you see, I want to find, like Diogenes, I want to find a black person that understands that black folk are not progressing. But more importantly, I want to find somebody, black or white, that don't mind being black and want to talk about the racial problem in this society. I can't even find that with my lantern in life. We got 3 or 4 major black organizations in America. 3, the Urban League, the NAACP, the Rainbow Coalition, and one other one. I can't even get them to focus on the issue of black folk. One wants to take care of cultural diversity. One wants to be talking about multiculturalism. One wants to talk about minority issues. The other wants to talk about oppressed people. And I asked them across the country, why don't somebody talk about black folk and the problems of black people? And so I'm looking, like Diogenes, for a person that understands the history of this country, because I want to understand the problem in America. And the problem is not what you all have been taught. The problem is not poverty. It is not unemployment. It is not unwed teenage parents. It is not food stamps. It's not public housing. It is not drug abuse. Black people only got 2 problems in America. The first problem is that you've been systematically locked into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. You have been locked into a no-win situation. That means that all the wealth and power in this country has been skewed over 400 years systematically into the hands of the majority white society. Black people don't own a significant amount of anything to be able to control their lives. Whites in America right now control almost 100% of all the income, the wealth, the power, the resources, the businesses, the privileges, and all levels of government. You cannot compete. And I'm tired of hearing people telling black folk, why don't you compete? Compete with what? Black people never got their 40 acres and a mule. Let's do some very specific things. If we don't get strategies, comprehensive strategies of doing some things to focus on that #1 problem of redistributing the wealth and power back into the hands of black folk, you can hang it up. Don't worry anymore about retiring. After the next 2 or 3 years, don't worry anymore about going to college. It ain't gonna work. The doors are gonna slam shut on black folk. And what I'm telling you right now is we're gonna have to get it together fast. And to do it, you must first understand what I'm gonna be telling you this morning, because that's what conservatism means. Conservatism comes from the root word to conserve. To conserve means to hold on to what you've got, or those who ain't got, as my mother said in a 3rd grade education, you ain't gonna get. That's what conservatism means. And it means nothing else. It means maintain the status quo. It means use every device that you have to give the pretense that what you see is normal. And right now there's a conservative move in this country, going from the White House across this land through the Congress, that says whatever exists all over this nation and in Los Angeles is normal. They want you to believe that it's normal to go out and watch and to see all the drug abuse and all the crime, all the poverty, and all the suffering of black folk lying and sleeping on the streets, drugged out, doped out. They want you to believe that's normal. That's what conservatism means, maintain the status quo. It also means to reinstitute white authority, white values, so you hear them talk about family values and all these other kind of things, and also white superiority. So when people start talking about they want to go back and be a conservative, you ask them, what are you trying to conserve? When my people don't own anything and you own 100%, what have I got to conserve? When you hear blacks going around screaming about they're a black conservative, you ask them, what are you conserving? Tell me one point in history that you found something that you want to conserve. Don't let people run that game on you about being a conservative. You tell them, say, fine, if you want to tell me what are you conserving? And when my people never had anything, why would they want to be a conservative? So the biggest problem we're going to have is conservatism when it goes across this nation. And we as black folk got to understand, now it's not all whites that are conservatives. There is an element that's got everything that want to make that it's the greed over need. They want to hold on to everything. And so, we're going to have a massive flow. Everybody's going to be talking about conservatism. You're going to see people politically switching, talking about they're moving to the far right. And what we have to do is understand that, and that's going to create major problems in this country. One, you're going to, not only will you see an increasing amount of negative hostility towards black folk, every piece of research in the country tells us that, even from the Jewish organizations, that you're going to see more anti-blackness now and in the future than you've ever seen in the last 60 years since you left the civil rights movement. Two, we see organizations all over the country now, paramilitary groups, Aryan groups, Vipers, Freeman, Skinhead, Baldhead, all kind of groups that are organizing and optimistically expecting and anticipating a major clash in this country between blacks and whites. We've had 28 states in the United States now to pass concealed weapons laws. That's specifically so some of the white contingency groups can carry weapons and arms at all times. That's why you have such a major thrust from the National Rifle Association. That's why they're controlling most of your politicians. Primary wealth in this country, the primary responsibility of government is to move wealth and to move power. And that's how the dominant society got its wealth and its power, by using government. But now they want to make sure black folk don't have access to it. That's why they're anti-affirmative action, but I'll get into all that a little later. But so the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that are going to drive us in this underclass structure will be conservatism. The second thing is that you're going to have an unending influx of immigrants into the country. And that's what Dr. Price is talking about. And nobody, no black politician, no black organization wants to deal with that issue. They will avoid it at all costs, even though in their hearts they know that's one of the biggest problems for black folk. We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the #2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being #2. You're going to go down and become #4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were #2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become #4. And the worst part about it is as you descend and go down to #4, those other groups are going to go up. And as they go past you, you're going to have major racial clashes in this country. You're going to have fights all over this country between blacks and Hispanics, blacks and Asians, blacks and poor whites. And black folk cannot fight all these groups. Everybody can not always be against black folk. They know that we are vulnerable and we are defenseless. And we cannot fight those groups. Because you see, they didn't come into this country with the legacies that we are stuck with. Everybody in America has an advantaged position but black folk. But all are in a state of denial. The white power structure in a state of denial. They are pretending that everything that they got, that 100% control and ownership of everything, they got it because they worked hard through a Protestant ethic. That's not how they got it. And you always hear them say, well, what you got to do, you got to work hard. Nobody can work any harder than a slave. But they're going to keep running these games on black folk. And at the same time, we got black folk that are accepting that what we got to do is work harder. And you see, when we get into that in a few minutes about history, what the power structure really wants is what we call unearned income. Slavery was nothing but unearned income for whoever owns the slave. And once slavery ended, that's where Wall Street came from. Wall Street was based on slavery. Everything that blacks were producing went to Wall Street then. And now that all that money that's amassed on Wall Street is still producing unearned income. All that money is producing a regular salary for people. It's in stocks and bonds and dividends. They don't have to work. Never had to work. But we're going to talk about that later on. So what I'm saying now is that you're going to have this massive influx of immigrants into the country that are better equipped. They don't have your legacies. They don't have your disadvantages. They're walking across the border. They're going to get a free lunch. They don't have to pay dues. But you got public policies in this country that are equating them to black folk. They're equating them to black, and what we've allowed them to do starting in 1970 is to wrap themselves in black folks' suffering and pretend somehow they suffered along with black folk. And therefore, whatever program is created under this misguided label called minority, that they are equal to you and over you. And we're going to deal with that whole concept of minority in a few minutes too. So that's the problem with the influx of immigrants. And what they are doing is coming into the country and doing what we've never been allowed to do and we've never been bright enough to do in some senses, is to build your own communities. You got to build your communities. You see, every group that when they leave their homeland, the last thing they do is look in the mirror. They look in the mirror and says, I'm going to America. And I'm going to go to America. I'm going to find me a community or neighborhood. Or I'm going to build one with people who look like me. And so that's why you go all over this nation, where they're coming out of Asia. You will find Vietnamese towns all over California, little Cambodias. You'll find a Chinatown in every major city. You'll see the Hispanics come in. They'll build a little Mexico, a little Havana, a little Hialeah. You find little Italys, French towns, German towns, Greek towns, Polish towns, but you cannot find one black town. And we are the only people that keep trying to integrate. We're the only people, rather than looking in the mirror and saying, I see somebody that looks like me, I want to go find and build me a community of people who look like me. We're doing just the opposite. That's your second problem, is inappropriate behavior of black folk. We keep looking in the mirror and says, I want to get away from everybody that looks like me. You can't have any power and wealth doing that. If you don't have a community, you cannot rebuild Los Angeles without a black community. If I cannot come in this city, you can tell me where every black lives, where he stays, where he works. You don't have a community. And all of you that want to go in business, don't waste your time. You cannot start a business and operate without a town or a community. Why can't you do it? Because without a community, you have no market. If you don't have a market, every black gonna go by your store at 200 miles an hour heading for the suburbs and heading for the malls. And that's why you got this major displacement of capital out of the black neighborhood. And I tell black folk, if you want to go in business today, don't do it. Give me the money. I need it. So we got major problems. That's the second thing, is dealing with this influx of immigrants. And what I'm telling you is that they're not coming in here to be your partner or your ally. They're coming in to compete with you. And your black organization and your black leadership in this country is afraid to teach black folk how to compete with all these other groups. And they're afraid because they keep trying to create allies with them. You cannot ally with anybody who's planning on supplanting you. You see, if you go check the Council of La Raza, you check the Council of Salala, if you check the National Hispanic Defense League, if you check the National Hispanic Party, the first thing that all of them have is to change the issues in this country from white and black to white and Hispanic. They're planning on supplanting you. And that's why they control South Florida. They play to win. We play to play. Okay? And when I leave here today, I want you all forevermore to play to win. Okay? The third thing that's going to hurt us and push us into this underclass structure is technology. You got blacks running all over the country telling black folks, some people, well, what we're going to do, we can overcome racism if we get involved in technology. Won't happen. Technology has never been a friend, an ally of black folk. It has always been our worst enemy. Why has it been? Because you see, racism has always kept us in our place. And technology has always come along and run over that place. That's why technology has always been our enemy. See, when you keep a black man as the porter, then all of a sudden you come along with a floor sander, he's gone. You keep him as the elevator operator and you put a computer in the elevator. You keep him as a dishwasher and you get an automatic dishwasher. You all understand what I'm telling you? So when black people come to you telling you, well, you get technology, no. You say, no. What we have to do is to get control of, get behind technology so to stop running over us. And I got friends in Washington, D.C. going all over this country telling black folk, you got to get into the information highway. And you can overcome racism. Whites were not that dumb. You cannot get on the information highway and overcome racism. Because the information highway is like any other highway. It's a transportation system. And what you should be asking yourself is, what are you transporting? If you don't have anything to transport, you can't get on the information highway. So what we got to be talking about as black folk is owning and controlling. It's just like when they invented the highway, the airplane system, the shipping system, the train system. It didn't advantage black folk because we never owned the trains, the planes, and the ships. What we got to do right now, starting with your church, is try to figure out how we can own and control more. Then the highway makes sense to us. Okay? Now, and that's why right now in Washington, D.C., the Office of Technology's last report says that the people going to be hurt most by technology are going to be black folk. And a fellow named Jeremy Rifkin has a book out called The End of Work. And he is the director of the National Economic Trends for Washington, D.C. and nationally. He's the guy that put out these trends. He put a book out, and his book, Chapter 5, talks about what technology is going to do to people, and he uses black folk as an example. And I went and sat down and talked with him. And what he says to Dr. Anderson, he said, my publishers tried to make me take that chapter out of the book. He said, I fought to keep it in. He said, because technology is going to kill black folk. And read that book, and that's what he's talking about. He says because black folk don't have any control of technology, don't own anything. And that's why we're getting ready to lose all our radio stations in this country. We're going to lose all of our television stations in this country. Because what's happening now, they've lifted the allocation cap, and now it's called social Darwinism, economic Darwinism. Whoever got the most money now can buy anything they want in technology. And so the few black stations we got in the United States now up for grabs. And as a matter of fact, even the cable system is going to be up for grabs because we don't have the money and resources. We can't compete with the whites now who want to buy all the systems. And once that happens, you can't get your information in. Now, that would not happen to organizations, to groups like the Hispanics. Because, see, the Hispanics got smart enough, they built communities. Then they took their language and they built a fence around their communities. They use their culture to protect their communities. Where is your culture? Where is your fence? And we're going to talk about that later on. You are vulnerable. The fourth thing that's going to happen to you is that this whole contract with white America is not anti-liberalism. It is not anti-Democratic Party. It wasn't even anti-Clinton. What it was they were trying to answer a question that's been haunting white America for about 30-something years. And that is, what do you do with 36 million obsolete black folk? That's what the contract was for. And how they concluded that was, you see, they got 1,200 white think tanks in America.
The name of this segue is called There Are No More Jobs, Now What Do I Do?
This is a list of videos found on YouTube that will help give reasons for this project. We will play short clips from the videos that will help give you pointers, but you can look them up on YouTube and play them in its entirety. Dr. Claude Anderson, Power of Blackness. Les Brown, Beyond the Comfort Zone. Les Brown, Beyond the Comfort Zone. Dr. Myles Munroe, Becoming an Agent of Change, Part 1. Dr. Frances Cress Welding, W-E-L-S-I-N-G, Physiologically Slavery. Dr. Myles Munroe, The Kingdom Message of Jesus.
And here we are, 140 years later, when you're supposedly free and gone through a civil rights movement, you still only own and control 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. You have not moved one iota in acquiring the most significant and the most important thing in our society. It is not civil rights. It is not integration that's going to give you equality and equal opportunity. It is what you own and control that makes a difference in your society. If you own and control nothing, you'll get nothing. There is no equal opportunity without having the equal amount of resources and power and wealth to be able to carry it out.
Shifts. We look at what's happening on the crime level and what's happening with our youth. That many times I'm sure that we've all taken time just to stop and reflect. Many times when we hear what's happening in the news or read the newspapers, where's all of this leading to? What's going on here? And so I think that now more than ever, we must begin to look at what are the things that we can do that would put us on some firm footing in life, that will enable us to do some things and use some powers that we have, that many of us go through life never ever discovering that we have those things going for us.
We don't just want to wear a title, we want to make a difference. We don't just want a position, we want to make an impact. We don't just want to be respected, we want to demand transformation. Just write it down. Whoever controls and manages time and manages changes will control our experience in time and change. I want you to think, please, about what I'm saying. I repeat, whoever controls and manages time and change will control our experience in time and change.
Because we have been deceived. We have been told we are in a democracy where everybody is equal. The truth and the reality is that we are in a system of racism, white supremacy. See, we're told that the system of democracy has imperfections. No, we are in a system of white supremacy that has been perfected. And that's why we keep staying basically in the same position. And as long as we don't understand we're dealing with a system, every week we just complain another black man has been shot, another black man has been killed. You say, oh, 10 over there, 3 over there. Oh, well, let's add up the statistics and somebody will run and complain about it. But if it's happening over and over again, that implies intentionality. And if the system is about white genetic survival, who is the enemy of the state? No, the black man. See, in a war, if you can take care of the business as defined, the problem is white genetic survival. So what do you have to knock out in order to not worry about white genetic survival? Exactly. They attack the black man.
You've been conditioned to think like a slave all your life, even when the door is open.
you stay in prison. I'll make a statement I want you to never forget. Jesus said he's anointed to do something. Luke chapter 4. Here's what he says. He says, the Spirit of God is upon me, for he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. Fine. Then he says, to bind up the brokenhearted. No problem. Then he says, to give sight to the blind. No problem. But then he makes a statement that is very shocking. He says, and to preach, he says, to preach deliverance to the captive, and the opening, and to preach, and to declare the opening of the prison to those who are bound. The way it's written in the original Greek language is the concept is he declares that the door is open to those who are in prison.
Sam, would you talk to our viewing audience? Tell them about some of the things that we did back in the days that were positive, and today we should be doing some of the same things because they was working back then, doing dinner.
I'm saying, but we did not carry the vision.
Come on, Sam.
All right.
Well, we should have carried the vision. We should have been the ones to build that restaurant, to be able to reflect on when we were out there. The same thing in Mount Pleasant area with Shem Creek. It's the same concept. And so what has happened to us musically, we have forgotten. Man, Arthur, I remember back in the day.
Tell y'all what he told me. This is what he said.
Live through it.
He said, James,
Grow through it.
I know you will.
Get through it.
And you can make it.
You can make it if you just break through it.